Hello and welcome to my channel, Primary Teaching with Kyle, and I am Kyle. This channel is a channel of a student trainee teacher and his journey becoming a real teacher. Currently, I am just about halfway through my year of teacher training. I chose the Schools Direct PGCE course, so I've had my 2 out of 3 placements so far, and it was around this time last year that I started looking at entering the trainee teacher course and what courses to go on, and I researched lots of YouTube videos about which courses to go on. Do I actually want to do it? So I just thought I'd put a little video out there today. 5 things I've learned so far this year. Now, firstly, this year has been a very different year to many other years due to lots of changes in terms of bubbles, in terms of in and out of school, different placements, training, changing, and all that sort of stuff. But I think these 5 tips are something that you can help yourself next year, but it also can help. It's going to help me going on further, and just little things that I need to remember to keep working on, and big things that have helped me that I've done, especially talking to other student teachers that they've mentioned this or they've mentioned that. So 5 things that I've learned so far being a trainee teacher. Number 1, organise yourself. Now, obviously, a lot of people and a lot of videos, and probably the uni themselves or anybody can say anything, organisation is a key aspect. What I mean by organisation is obviously you've got to organise yourself to get these things in order and figure out what needs to be done now and all that sort of stuff. But I think for me, it's organise yourself in terms of the uni part. So, for example, for my part, I was coming on to the 1-year teacher training course after doing a 3-year bachelor's course, sports science, when I was 18 to 21. So it was about 8 years ago. So I haven't done any uni aspects for 7 or 8 years. So to come back in and to do assignments and to keep up with a portfolio and do weekly observations and teacher observations of you and all these things that the uni asks you to do, which is brilliant, but it's being organised during it, and especially during the first couple of placements, because you will have an assignment, you might have 2 depending on what course you do before Christmas, but when you are in school and as your placements go on, you will do more and more teaching. So, for example, in my course, in my Schools Direct course, when we first started, it was our first placement started in September, and we were doing basically 1 lesson a day of teaching. And that would be very, very much supported by the teacher. It would be almost, sometimes it would be giving me lesson plans, or it'd be, what about this idea, and really working together collaboratively on the actual planning of the lessons. So then I had a lot more time, and at the time you didn't think it, but you do, of getting your portfolio sorted, getting things in order. So making sure, so I made sure that I did a lot of observations of the teachers as much as possible, as early as possible, because after January and now after Easter, you're going to do more and more teaching, which means you have less and less time to do observations of them. You have less and less time to do full evaluations of how your lessons go. So you have less and less time to do things because you're more doing of the teaching, of the planning, of the assignments, that sort of stuff. You are quicker with it, but it needs to be done. Okay, so my biggest tip is just organise yourself early. Make sure you try and check off the things you can, especially during the early stages of your placements, because those are the things that you're going to forget later on. Number 2, set routines early. Now, a lot of places that I looked at last year on YouTube talked about work-life balance, and I worked as a TA myself for a year and a half. A lot of the teachers that I was working with last year, before I became a student teacher, was talking about work-life balance. You don't really have it, you do really have it. Now, there's a lot of debate about that, about how you can get it, but for me, you've got to figure out the routines that work for you and just stick with it. Whether it's the same as your class teacher, whether it's the same as a student that you're working with, whether it's not, it doesn't make a difference. It's got to be what works for you. So what works for me is I really struggle to do work at home because I can't really separate it. I've tried in the last couple of months, whilst we've been doing online learning, to have, we have a spare room. So the room we're in right now, I have like an office room. So come in there, shut the door. But even then I still feel like it's not really coming into it. So for me, my own routine is I stay late at school. So I will come in a bit earlier. I'll get there about 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I won't leave until sometimes 5, 5:30. I'll get as much as I can done at the school. Whether that's uni work or school work, it doesn't make a difference to me. I will try and get all of it done there. So as soon as I leave those doors, I'm at the door. That means I'm not doing any work that night. I'm not checking any emails, not doing any assignments, not doing any marking. But that's not for everybody, okay? It's different for each person, but you've got to find what works for you as early as possible, and then work it around. So, for example, there's another student teacher in my in my school last placement who has to go home early because of her childcare issues. So, because of that, she makes sure she comes in early, but she has a lot of FaceTime and emails with her class mentor to make sure that she's getting the support that she needs. She's asking lots of questions. So, the biggest thing for biggest tip I would say is set your routines early. Figure out what you like to do and set it and stick to it, because it's going to give you that balance. You need that balance of work life. Number 3, ask questions. Now, I've definitely, this has been a problem that I've had, especially in my second placement. My second placement was really had lots of problems because we, as you all know, the very next day after moving into our second placement, Boris Johnson and the government decided that that was the right time to close all schools with 24 hours notice, which is another issue altogether. But that meant that I had to adapt to a new school, a new teacher, a new key stage, and also adapting to online learning, which I hadn't done in the previous placement. So that was a big change. So for me, my biggest thing was asking questions. Okay, you've got to ask questions so you fully understand it. Now that depends on how you do it, but for me, I've learned that I didn't ask enough questions. So sometimes I would get given the lesson plan, or I'd get given the tips and go, okay, go and write that down. I wrote a note down and I'd come back to it an hour later and I go, what the hell is this? What did I write down? What do I mean? But at the start, I wasn't confident enough to ask questions, so I just go off and do it. Then I'd send my lesson plan to the teacher and she'd go, what do you mean? We were talking about this. I go, oh. If I'd have just asked a simple question to fully understand, then I'd gone on lesson plan, and now I do. I send her another email or a text and just go, what do you actually mean by this? Oh, okay, so you actually mean we're going to do fractions in halves and we're going to work it through by working with decimals or something like that. Okay, right, I can go and do a lesson plan on that. Okay, that's what you meant. I can go and write that up. Okay, so ask questions. Does not matter how silly you are, and does not matter how busy they are. The class mentors that you're working with, or your uni people that you're working with, they will get back to you. You've just got to be patient, and you've got to keep bugging them because they've got a lot of things on and they're going to forget things. And they're not going to do that on purpose unless you're really unlucky and you have a bad mentor or a bad uni tutor. But they're going to forget things. So you just have to keep reminding them, and it's for your benefit. You need that support. So just keep asking questions. Number 4 is checklists or prioritization, okay? A lot of videos I looked at last year and I didn't really understand what they were talking about. A lot of teachers, they were saying they need to prioritize. There's always things that get done and all that sort of stuff. And now, after being 6 months or so of being a student teacher, I know what they mean, because there's always these ideas you have. There's always these lesson plans that you could do, or this marking that you could do, or all this work that you could be doing, or especially with uni, you have this assignment or this task that you need to do in a week or so. So the biggest thing for me is checklists and prioritization, okay? Prioritize what needs to be done now and what needs to be done later. So for example, marking. Your foundation subjects, so your arts, your DTs, your PEs. Obviously PE is a slightly different one in terms of marking, but those kind of subjects, they're generally done once a week, okay? So your marking for that doesn't need to be done that evening. Don't need to rush it. So for example, I taught the whole DT sequence of lessons last term, and we focused on bug hotels. But because I knew that it was going to be once a week, I didn't have as much pressure on to do it that evening. So that one particular evening, I had to do an assignment stuff because it was coming out the next day, and I had to make sure that it was ready to go and checked it all off and done the references and all that sort of stuff. So I didn't do the DT stuff. I didn't do the DT marking until a couple of days later, and then I worked with the marking and the lesson planning. Okay, right, so they didn't really get this. I'm going to plan a lesson based on that. And that was what my lesson was going to be, and I based it on, okay, the kids didn't really understand what they mean by this design part, so we're going to work with this and we're going to create a lesson on this for next lesson. prioritize the things that need to be done now. So you're marking for the next day, your lesson planning for the next day, you need to get the sheets ready. I would always just say a big tip is to get it ready the night before, if you can, depending on the school you are and depending on the photocopiers, because that's always a big queue in the morning. So try and get it ready, and even if it's just printing it off a few times, and then in the morning all you need to do is go and photocopy it a few more times. Okay, prioritize what needs to be done now and what needs to be done later. Number 5, enjoy it. Okay, and treasure the moments that you've done this teaching for. So for example, for me, I wanted to become a teacher because I love working with kids, and I especially working with primary school kids, because they're just so unique, they're so weird and wacky, and they come up with the weirdest and funniest things. But I've noticed it in other teachers when I was a TA, but I've also noticed it myself, especially during this lockdown period. But mentally, you kind of get weighed down with all the things you need to do. So the paperwork, the marking, the this and the meetings, and then this and then this, and you just get weighed down. You need to enjoy those moments that something funny happens. So something happens with a kid that's just so unique, and you have to laugh about it, or you have to go and tell another staff member at lunchtime about it. Okay, enjoy it. Those are the moments that you're in school for. Those moments where you see a kid just get it, just the light bulb goes on in their head and they understand what you mean and they get it and they go and work on it. Brilliant. Enjoy that. Tell somebody about it. Write it down. Treasure it. Okay, because those are the moments that are going to get you through when it's a bit harder. Enjoy the moments. Obviously, it's different at the moment in terms of bubbles and stuff like that. But enjoy the moments when you can speak to other staff members. Enjoy the moments when you can speak to other students that you're working with and really talk about the ideas that you've had. And I've done that lesson, and really work with each other and really enjoy it, because that's what you're doing. It's a job to enjoy. You know, you don't get paid enough to do this every single day and not enjoy it. And what are you doing? If you're going to do it just for the money, it's not worth it. You've got to enjoy those moments, but they're few and far between at sometimes. So treasure them and enjoy it. Thank you very much for watching.